Astonishingly, it's been 22 years since Final Fantasy VII first popularized Square Enix's flagship franchise the world over. An uninitiated mainstream audience was exposed to the curious number-floating nature of JRPGs, as the game firmly lodged itself into the materia slots of many, many hearts. That was over 2 decades ago, but the cherished memories feel like yesterday. Paradoxically, the wait for the long-awaited PS4 remake has gone on for at least 1 million years or something, or at least it feels that way. In fact, it feels like a goddamn eternity. Pinch yourself though, because it's finally near, or at least some of it is. On the 3rd of March 2020, the first episode of Final Fantasy VII's Remake is summoned onto shelves from Square Enix's studio. And by the looks of things, there's plenty of Moogle for your moolah, or at least more than enough to keep you busy until episode 2 agonizingly creeps over the line. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is Final Fantasy VII Remake, every confirmed and leaked detail we know. Number 17, it's episodic, and part 2 is already underway. We've had to wait nearly half a decade for Final Fantasy VII's Remake, and even when it does hit shelves, it'll only be half finished. At best. That's because Square Enix, wanting to do justice to the scope and scale of the project, whilst also coincidentally reaping the profits several times over, made the difficult decision to split the game into several episodes. Episode 1 will focus solely on the game's Midgar plotline, roughly equating to the opening 15 hours or so of the original, but it's going to be expanded significantly here. So, how many episodes will there be? Well, we can't say, and neither can the devs at the moment. What we do know is that episode 2 is already deep into production though, even before the first has exited the vault. Number 16, character redesigns and minor changes. According to an info leak a few months ago, some of the main cast have underwent some minor tweaks to their design. Tifa, whilst faithful to her quite impractical original outfit, more closely resembles her Advent Children appearance, with longer hair and slightly westernized features. In a cool touch, materia can now be slotted onto her gloves as well. Coffin-dwelling Ultragoth Vincent and materia-stealing Ninja Yuffie are no longer optional members of Cloud's party either. If missed, they'll be forced to tag along eventually. Finally, Sid, for self-evident commercial reasons, only smokes implicitly and he isn't depicted taking a drag on screen. Oh, and yeah, he's much less abusive to his wife, which is very, very good. Number 15, no new main characters. File this in the drawer tabbed subject to change because, as we'll discover soon, it sort of already has. But way back in 2015, Tetsuya Nomura confirmed in an interview with Famitsu that the Final Fantasy VII Remake, in a bid to remain as faithful as possible, won't feature any new characters. Given the slew of frankly crap new folk introduced into Final Fantasy VII's wad of extraneous material, comprising of prequels, movies, OVAs, and presumably interpretive ballet, this is an absolute godsend. Number 14, but there are new bosses. So, there are no new characters then, but because he's a sly cheat, Nomura has since qualified his historical comments to only refer to main characters. The creative visionary wrote on the official Square Enix blog that although in past interviews he did say there'd be no new folk, basically he lied. He said, quote, "Though there aren't main characters, their numbers ended up growing considerably in the process of creating a rich depiction of Midgar." Nomura didn't go into further detail about any of the fresh faces set to populate the slums, but he did note that the game's first third will boast all new bosses, bolstering the drama of the story in the process. Number 13, exclusive DLC pre-order bonus summons. Square Enix have announced a deluxe version of Final Fantasy VII boasting all the usual bells and whistles, a hardcover art book, a soundtrack selection, and a pointless steelbook. This bounty, should you need it, will set eager fans back $79. However, for Final Fantasy VII fanatics with even greater fervor and bank balances, there's a super lavish, frankly decadent first class edition as well to go alongside this. An eye-wateringly, ball-bleedingly steep $330 will net you all the same tat as the deluxe version, plus a meticulously sculpted figurine of Cloud Strife abreast his hardy Daytona, which we should point is a motorbike and not a person. Outside the paradise of plastic littering both boxes, perhaps the best thing about these games for rich folk are the pre-order DLC summon materia. Number 12, new minigames. The original Final Fantasy VII was absolutely overflowing with extra activities, all of which were terribly diverting and none of which prevented a massive meteor from hurtling towards Earth. We don't know for absolute certain whether all or even any of the legacy minigames will return in the remake, but common sense dictates that they will in some capacity. So too do early screenshots showcasing a brand new time waster, a darts board, presumably situated in the 7th Heaven bar right at the start of the game. There's not much to say about Final Fantasy VII Remake's darts, it's literally just aiming and throwing because that's what darts is, I guess. Looking at the wider picture then, this all-new distraction suggests fun Shenmue-esque details like this will be sprinkled throughout Midgar. Number 11, the all-new tactical mode. Final Fantasy devotees, already disappointed with the direction the series has taken across the past 5 entries, turned their milk sour with bitter glares when it was revealed that Final Fantasy VII's remake wouldn't retain the classic turn-based combat, but instead replace it with the modern real-time system more akin to Final Fantasy XV. Dairy needn't have curdled, however, because the old way of doing things hasn't been completely abandoned in this comeback, thanks to an optional tactical mode. During battle, a press of the X button switches modes, effectively freezing time to allow command input in the same way as 15's wait mode. It's a lovely little addition that allows the remake to effectively deliver both a fresh new take and an old-school revival of the popular classic. Number 10, shortcuts and staggering enemies. Another aspect of combat migrated from open-world boy band to a Final Fantasy XV is the ability to stun or stagger enemies in combat, opening the doorway for a brutal all-out assault. In fact, every enemy has a secondary stagger gauge beneath the usual HP bar. It accrues as they take damage, and when full, the beastie is knocked back. At this point, it's time to unload all those ATB bars and lay the proverbial smackdown on the downed foe. Theoretically, reaching the stagger stage will constitute the key battle tactic in boss battles, and should provide a more fun challenge beyond spamming Knights of the Round and just getting the job done. Number 9, story changes. I think it's fair to say that as universally loved as Final Fantasy VII is, its story, or at least its translation, is not necessarily the best, or should that be, are not necessarily the best. A whole lot of subtext and content was lost when the game migrated from Japan in 1997, and some of the narrative that was left was, to put it mildly, complete gibberish. Obviously, a lot of the more egregious nonsense will be ironed out in the remake, though the creative director has also promised that with the game stretched across numerous episodes, the story will also go into greater depth in certain areas, without any of the key narrative beats being altered. Number 8, it's on 2 discs. Back in the days of the PS1, a game being spread across multiple discs was often miscorrelated with its length, when really it was just an indicator of resources. Final Fantasy in particular was revered for its stunning streaming set pieces, and they were also the reason the PlayStation trilogy comprised of 11 discs in total. Game length still isn't dictated by the number of discs, and with digital distribution platforms increasingly the norm, it's less relevant than ever. But in an era of high-capacity Blu-ray storage, filling 2 of the big blithers still indicates a project developed on a colossal scale. It also indicates that you'll need to clear your hard drive for every square inch of storage come next year. Number 7, cross-dressing Cloud is still a thing. The remake is set to take a much darker, mature, and overall better translated tone than its PS1 forebear, but Nomura has promised that won't mean it's entirely exercised things played for laughs in that original. Notably, Nomura confirmed that the early game quest during which protagonist Cloud must cross-dress to impress a crime boss has definitely made the cut, despite the sequence being played as a joke in a way that came across outdated at best and borderline transphobic at worst. The director urged fans to please look forward to the modern take, and if the intent and execution are handled with appropriate sensitivity, this could be a shining beacon for video game inclusion. If not, and it's just a broad overhaul to fit with the game's newfound grittiness, expect a ream of relevant post-mortems to follow. Number 6, Nobuo Uematsu has returned as composer. Although Nobuo Uematsu was already growing a following during Square Enix's time aligned with Nintendo, and in particular for his memorable leitmotifs underpinning the soundtrack for Final Fantasy VI, it was arguably his music for Final Fantasy VII which brought his work and name to the fore. Since going freelance in 2004, the man known as the Beethoven of video games has only made occasional contributions to the series on which he built his estimable legacy. Praise the Lord then that the maestro is back on board for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. This was confirmed back in June after it was expected that he would give the series the cold shoulder. Instead, we're getting something that resonates on many levels with Final Fantasy VII in general, a reunion. Number 5, the new ATB battle system. Final Fantasy VII Remake, though broadly faithful to the source material, isn't a simple one-to-one reproduction of that original with better graphics. The combat in particular has received a hefty overhaul, with the classic turn-based system replaced with a new action-oriented real-time endeavor. Despite the fundamental changes, a few familiar features have escaped intact though, if only in spirit and not function. The active time bar, the meter that would fill before granting a player character a turn, is one such survivor. This time around though, segments of the bar accumulate courtesy of attacks. When full, special abilities such as items, magic, and brand new character-specific moves can be deployed, each consuming a portion of the bar. Basically, it's absolutely nothing like the original ATB, but hey, the letters are there, so that's nice, I guess. Number 4, weapon growth. In the original Final Fantasy VII, weapons were a relatively simple affair. Whilst frolicking out in the wild, Cloud and crew could either buy or stumble upon an entire arsenal, which just so happened to be specifically appropriate for their unique abilities. I mean, how many people out there are fighting baddies with a megaphone? Anyway, besides their core stats, the only other property weapons possessed was materia slots, either linked or individual. Both remained static though, and improvement meant scouring the world for a slightly shinier sword or set of shurikens. The sharp, pointy sticks are a little more organic in the remake though, allowing upgrades which will enhance the wielder's stats in areas such as max HP, attack power, and of course magic. In addition, weapons now carry their own unique abilities, which increase in proficiency the more they're used. Basically, it's a system that enables you to waste loads of time fine-tuning a sword, only to find a better one underneath an innkeeper's rug. Number 3, summons can't be used in every battle. Summons are amongst Final Fantasy's most enjoyable and iconic aspects, so it goes without saying that they're all present and accounted for in Final Fantasy VII's remake. Whereas in several Final Fantasies, summons going by a variety of monikers play a key role in the story, in Final Fantasy VII they were nothing more than hard-hitting, visually spectacular spells tied to materia. They were also absolute game breakers, and at least one of the more obnoxiously lengthy summons could wipe the floor with the game's final boss whilst you made a cup of tea and a hot buttered scone. The system is set for a considerable shakeup then in the remake. Summons, while still condensed into materia, can no longer be dredged from the depths on cue, but will instead stir to life during particularly challenging scenarios. Likewise, now your Beckon Beastie doesn't mish off after its special move, but will stick around to help out until your foes are thoroughly toast. Number 2, it has a reversible cover. That's pretty much it for this one actually. On the one side there's a perfectly recreated shot of the original US PS1 sleeve, whilst the reverse features the same sleek logo on black as the Japan version. There you go, short and sweet. Number 1, the release date and platform. Perhaps the most pertinent question on everyone's lips is, just when will we finally be able to get our hands on the game? Well, it's not too long to wait now. During a pre-E3 Final Fantasy concert in Los Angeles this past June, Nomura personally unveiled that the long-awaited redo, 4 years in the making, will hit stores on the 3rd of March 2020. I cannot wait. Just before I started recording this as well, it was revealed that the PS4 exclusivity deal is only going to last 1 year, with the game coming to other consoles and PC after that. So that's all we have for now. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you looking forward to Final Fantasy VII's remake? And did you know about any of these features beforehand? And of course, are you looking forward to it? Either way, while you're down there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.